Hey, Weißer Cereal, what's up, man? Yeah, good morning, guys. Very good morning. Like always, I'm the Avenger. The Avenger of the Sleepless, the Avenger of the Americans. Whoever wants to take refuge here is very welcome. So, we are still on our challenge, and that probably won't change for a year. And that is the beautiful 50 watcher runs. And I have to say, I'm very happy about it. Why? Because it will mean a lot of fun and a lot of future fun. The Watcher is a character which I personally find so freaking versatile. And that's probably mostly due to the high amount of boss swaps you will usually encounter if you play that character. As a matter of fact, in the Ironclad you never boss swap. On the Silent as well. And on the Defect? As well, right? On the Defect you also don't boss swap, I guess. Or what was it? Or did we? No. Yes. Oh, actually we boss swap. Well, actually the Defect also boss swaps. No? What did we say? 160 or what? Oh, okay, the Defect also boss swaps. What a beautiful character that Defect is. When did we even have the 16? Was it here? Yeah, we actually had 2 streaks on the Defect, right? Yeah. We started to play him, then we streaked 1 time. And then here we streaked another time. Ah no, here. Ha. What a good time to be alive. So, Defect I like to boss swap somewhat often. Yeah, because the starting relic sucks. Makes a lot of sense. Maybe that also explains why we had so much fun on the Defect the last time. Yeah, it's just so freaking versatile. Oh my god, this is beautiful. Okay, so, what do I want to do? I remember. Why so serious is interestingly, Xegna has refused Defect boss swaps for the first 200 of his sample. Very interesting. Very interesting. And he also resulted in a roughly similar win rate. What is Xegna's win rate on the Defect currently? From what I've seen, like around 70-ish or whatever. Does anybody know? I don't follow it so much. What I'm getting is that Xegna performed highest levels on the Silent and on the Ironclad. And like on the Silent, of course, we don't play the Silent, so a much higher win rate than ours. And on the Ironclad, roughly the same, I would argue, maybe a little bit higher. I mean, as a matter of fact, it was even higher. So, what I'm getting at is, if we are around 75 to 80 on the Defect, he should have that same as well. And, like, obviously, right? I mean, somebody is not, like, insanely good on one character and then sucks at the other character. So that might be one explanation, for example. Yeah. So, he was skipping to fully learn the cards before looking at them. I think not because he thought they were bad. You mean the boss swap, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, basically this. I'm just saying it could also be just... Actually, we analyzed it, right? I mean, if I remember now, we analyzed it and we realized if you boss swap and you boss swap into a tiny house... No, the Defect... What is the Defect starting relic? Fortunately, I have this library. Wait. Relic collection. At the start of each combat channel, 1 lightning. Yeah, well, that sucks. And the worst thing is that the upgraded extra relic of the defect sucks even harder. So the interior has to be the bottommost swap. You know, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, what I'm getting at is that we analyzed it and we realized, okay, we are talking about like only bad options, yeah. So we actually said, as you all are aware of, the choices from the Neo, which is very, very nice, have like a huge gap in payout. So there are these options which are around 180 gold, 170, 180 goldish. And there are the ones which are just like 100 gold, 110. And that stems from the fact that one of the Neo rewards is basically a big better than all the others, which is like getting a common relic without a downside. And the other thing is that one of the downsides is very, very low in Ascension 20, which is like lose max HP. So if you get any of those, then you will look at like a very, very juicy non-boss swap, right? And if you do not have those, then you're looking at the very, very juicy boss swap. So I think like kind of there are these thresholds, the two thresholds, which are like 180 gold, 100 gold. And on the Watcher, we know that the boss swap is so insanely mighty out of a lot of reasons, one including the crappy starting relic, that it's very close to even the best Neo choices. On the other hand, we have like Ironclad with a freakingly amazing starting relic, which basically means that boss swap will never be an option because the starting relic of the Ironclad is so completely busted. Also busted in a way in comparison to the other starting relics, that is, which is like the Burning Blood, of course. And then, but for the other characters, you know, Silent doesn't need the energy and Silent can cheat energy. So there's also something to that. But on the defect, again, if this swap is like between the value of 100 and 180, you will see yourself basically boss swapping this half of the time, or actually 60%, 65% of the time. And we probably encounter this very effect on the defect. And I also have to say, I don't even think it's close. Like, in order to justify not boss swapping, it means that you're believing that the boss swap carrying below 100 gold of value, which is not realistic in my view. Simply because even if you swap into something like a tiny house, which the defect can use, but putting that aside, we realize that's already like 100 gold of swap value. And that's not even mentioning that you get better boss relics afterwards. So I think it's very clear, honestly. But, why so Siri, they actually checked it. 70% on the first sample and 66% halfway now. Okay, interesting. So probably around 70%. That sounds about right. Yeah? I think part of it might stem from the swapping thing. I had the feeling that it actually makes kind of a decent delta, given that you might, you know, if you don't do it, you might like lose 30, 40 gold. But the problem with the defect is like it counts a lot because you need, first of all, you need each bit of strength you can gather. Yeah, it basically snowballs from there. Yeah. For a streak of low roll boss swaps. Yeah, that's the wrong way to look at it. Why so serial? Like it's only about maxing out a certain percentage of a run, and low rolls are included in that. So you can just happily forget about the low rolls. It doesn't make any sense. It's kind of the argument, okay, you shouldn't take any risks. It's not that we want to take risks during any kind of run. It's just we would always and only take the risk if it actually does increase the win rate altogether from the run. So, for example, taking a risk of ruin of 5%, we would only do that if it actually increases also the win rate of the run afterwards, right? So, yeah, this. Naja, okay. So, okay. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Xegna would at some point start to boss swap more often, that he will just stick to that. Because, yeah, I think it's quite realistically better, and once you do it, it's not to be overlooked. That's my point, basically. So, this. No, we are talking defect at the moment. Yeah, we are talking defect at the moment. Okay, so, okay. Oh, is this new? Good. Now, I just checked something in the internet. I will go to some forced auction later. And yeah. Actually, today is not the forced auction. Today is like the visiting appointment for the forced auction. I'm currently doing more of these forced auctions because of the... Is anybody interested in that? I don't know. So I just tell you like what I'm doing at the moment next to my amazing family life, which I absolutely ultimately enjoy a lot, and also like streaming Slay the Spire. So as you, or some of you might be aware that the interest rates are going up, and that's like historically unique. That's historically a unique situation, which I personally don't find that difficult to interpret. So what I'm talking about is like a very long duration of a 0% interest rate train of like more than 5 years or whatever, and that resulted in people going haywire with taking a lot of loans, variable loans, where you basically think, oh, you're so ultimately clever because you can take like a loan for 2%, maybe even 1% interest rate, and buy yourself something completely overpriced real estate. And that resulted in a freakingly first of all, overpricing in real estate, but second of all, also overbuilding of real estate, even like some of them being like vacant. Ultimately, it was also always clear that once the interest rates do increase, that many people won't be able to actually fulfill their variable loans. You know the usual story that the argumentation was even, hey, it's cheaper to take a loan than to rent. We were discussing that in the past years. I was advising you absolutely not to take any kind of loan for this overpriced thing, because like it's a direct pathway to hell. In a financial way, it's like financial suicide if you do not have abundant money. And that's basically exactly what's happening right now. So interest rates go up. All those guys who thought they are so clever by taking like a big loan because it's like cheaper than rent. Now real estate do devalue. They cannot fulfill their loan, but they will also go directly into forced auctions because the real estate value decreased, which means they cannot cover the loan because of that. So once they cannot pay the first rate, they are just going directly into forced auction. Since money is now not cheap any longer, it means that nobody is buying those properties. So you will see a lot of properties in forced auction, and more than money can afford, or at least the current money, which is like floating around through the economical action space. And that means it's good for them who have the ability to buy real estate now, which I'm very fortunate to be in this situation. Also because I planned for it, but sure. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm currently doing. I'm doing it also in a way, I mean, I find it actually also sometimes a little bit sad. So, you know, like somebody buys a real estate, maybe even some people for their family, not having like this financial intelligence, and then now they need to like leave their property. And how I usually do it, like if I buy some property and the family lives in there, I talk with them and very often also just find a solution, even if that results in like a real, like even if this results in a rent which is below market price. You know, kind of my philanthropic contribution, if you want to say so. I was also thinking about this a lot, like, okay, what should I do? Should I donate? Should I donate a lot, or how's that going? I talked a lot with close friends of mine who did those things, and it didn't really hit me as something. Okay, long story short, it was kind of, unfortunately, also a lot of bad experiences where it seems not to be as easy as just donating money and then, you know, you can impact things also very often. Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, it wasn't even that thankful. Or I give you one example, so to make it clear, like one friend of mine, he kind of donated 200,000. Also, he basically went to Africa and I think it was Somalia, where he funded a school for like, and then gave 100k, and then again 100k, and he thought, okay, that will be like probably covering the school for 20 years, but apparently through corruption, a very very small amount actually got put into the school, like maybe burning 80%, 90%, whatever. But at the same time also, like, people are not really thankful about it, but rather like see him as the cash cow. So I was reflecting on that and thought maybe that's not the good way for me. And also just from it's honestly a personal preference. But my personal preference is that I actually interact with people I do favors for. It's really just a personal thing. I might have a bigger impact by just donating to some organization. It's just not my style. I really am of a kind of nature that I want to be in direct interaction with people I do help. And that works very well for me. It's very rewarding. Be it taking kids or babies from families who were very unfortunate, or like kids or babies which were being abused, and give them shelter for a month, 2 months, 3 months at the time. Or be it just, you know, buying a property from a desperate family which would be evicted otherwise, but because I'm in interaction with them, we can actually find a solution together. And those things make me feel good. Yeah. So again, like, it's due to personal preference. But yeah, that's what I'm currently doing. Okay, cool. Stories of my life, and we go, and of course the 50 watcher win rate. Okay. It's also how I actually sort out my life, my personal life. I always go in circles from my person, and then going in circles. So kind of in a way, are the people directly surrounding me happy? Can I do something for them? If they are all happy and that's checkmarked, and I still have time, I'm like, okay. And what, like, that would be my family, right? My direct family. And then I would like, okay, can I actually do something for my friends? Like, are there some kind of endeavors I could make, or maybe some business propositions even, which could make them happier? And then I take a look at that, and if there's still time, which usually is, I'm thinking, okay, and what about I don't know. My neighbors. What about people who are living in this district? Could there be something useful to be done there? Or even in the city. And currently this is kind of my radius of impact. That I basically say, okay, Vienna surrounding, basically where I'm personally at. How can I have a positive impact in this area? Yeah. I think it's also positive or a kind of good in a way that you can actually also see and evaluate for yourself if you're physically nearby, right? So I can evaluate those things on a personal level because I'm in a physical way at the location of the happening. This. Okay. Good. Good. And I'm currently also somewhat in such a good spot. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I am like super satisfied at the moment. Usually I didn't have this personal life satisfaction for myself. Being kind of always driven, of course, but also driven so much that it affected my personal well-being. Not in a way that I was like, oh, like my life is shitty or something. Not in that way, but kind of in a way, couldn't appreciate the good things of life. And I'm not talking about alcohol and drugs. I'm talking about the meaningful things. And I don't know what happened, but really this travel to Kazakhstan kind of switched the switch in my emotional brain. I cannot really pinpoint it. Maybe it was also that decade of reflection, but for whatever reason, I cannot really put it in words, but I'm very happy. Like, that's it. Which is pretty cool. Like, for me, I don't know. Okay. Nibble my son, back to Slay the Spire. Nibble my son is, that's what happens if you don't play the defect for a long time. That, yeah, I know that, yeah. Defect was tilting at the beginning. I have to say, once we mastered, but I mean, we near mastered the defect. Backed up by win rate and win streak results. And I can remember it being a lot of fun after we got used to the defect. Like a lot of fun. No. Once you have it under control, I'm a perfectionist, so if I don't have something under control, it makes me feel bad. That was the defect for me when we were struggling with it. But after we actually got the grasp of the defect gameplay, I felt very good playing the defect. Just having the feeling of being in control, which I didn't have before. Dr. Sex says, I kind of miss starting streams. If you got bet, you went to Kazakhstan or Thailand like you told stories before. Usually I spend 2 months in Thailand. It's still my destination of choice. I love the country, I love the landscape, I love the people of Thailand, I love the religion. I'm not a Buddhist myself, but it seems to me that Buddhism has a lot of positive things, impact-wise. So Thailand is still the destination of my choice. Yeah. It was also about the language thing. So I actually learned Thai until I was proficient in it. So I thought, and it might be a good change of scenery for like a travel somewhere else. At the same time, a good friend of mine invited me to Kazakhstan to live at his place for 1 month. Also at one he has several flats, and one was empty, and he suggested that. And since I'm also a spontaneous person, I was like calling him up on, taking him up on that offer, because what are the odds you're just visiting Kazakhstan if there's not like a special opportunity? And it was a special experience. So he was very friendly, like he even took off like... Okay, Kazakhstan people are incredibly hospitable. Yeah, so it was insane. Like they were all like, literally all like, you cannot say of course whether somebody is extremely happy. I mean, it might also be just for a few days, you know. Like in Germany, we say after 5 days the fish starts to smell, which basically means visitors are welcome, but you know, only for a short time. That's like the German saying. But literally all people I met personally were excited that somebody is visiting their country and loves to be there. And it was an incredible experience. But I was also talking about like this thing with the two-class society, which really like was an eye-opener for me. Not that I didn't know that those things do exist, you know, but it really, like a magnifying glass, basically showed me again what I... It's one thing that you know about things, it's the other one, it's the other thing to actually experience that firsthand with your own eyes. So, terrorism says hospitality is an important part of many Asian cultures. Yes, but the Kazakhstanis, they take it to the next level. And the reason for that is because they were like Bedouins. Are Bedouins? Is it Bedouins? They were like traveling. How is it called? Is it Bedouins? Yeah. So, like a Wandervolk. Yeah, Bedouins, okay. So, they were Bedouins, so it was insanely... Nomads, thanks. It's a nomadic culture, yeah. So it was incredibly important that if you traveled somewhere, that you get fresh water, that you get food and all that stuff. So it's hard to put it in words because, again, they put the hospitality to the absolute next level. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. Which, me being a visitor, was of course very, very lovely. It was great. At the same time, again, like this perspective. I mean, there are two things to that, right? I mean, the one thing is visiting my good friend and encountering all the hospitality. And the other thing is like this two-class society with a lot of injustice in that. And corruption, all that stuff. And social bad feelings. And this is completely separated. Yeah, as a topic. So there were absolutely these two extremes which I encountered. Like one was the personal well feeling of being in such a hospitality environment, and the other one was my personal experience if I was not in this hospitality surrounding. Okay. It's over. Boyo says, did you try some horse meat in Kazakhstan? Yeah, canino. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I ate horse meat all the time. It's super delicious. Yeah, I love it much more than cow meat. Oh, absolutely, I did. Yeah, also the Kazakhstanis, they have like horse meat as, yeah, basically like how we have cows, they have like horses, which are specifically for that purpose. Yeah. Okay. So, Timik asked, was the two-class society thing not in Thailand as well? Absolutely different. Absolutely different. It is true, but at the same time, it's a completely different story. So in Thailand, yes, you have the two-class society, but the lower class has a very good life because of the sabai thing, right? So, how to describe? they are okay. In Kazakhstan, it's a very much situation that some people own everything, and the other people do not own some, like, they own pretty much nothing. So if you're from the lower class, you have two options. Either you can take part in the social unrest, or you can become a servant. And I'm literally saying that this way because in that culture it's exactly that way. So the lower class is being treated in a not very friendly way. Kind of, yeah, like, okay, I just give you guys some examples and then you can understand where I'm coming from. So you're in a restaurant, you have that button where you can call the waiter. Your glass is empty, the bottle is standing directly next to the glass. Now you could take the bottle and get yourself some water, but no, you press the button, the waiter comes and he gives you the water. Something falls to the ground. You could pick it up yourself, but you can also press the button, somebody comes and picks it up for you. You press the button. Yeah. If you're in such an environment, you see that, you're like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, you know, kind of being surprised. And you realize that the 4 people or 5 people sitting at your table, they are not surprised whatsoever, which basically means that's the normality there. And it's not only the normality for the 5 people sitting at the table, but it's also the normality for the guy for the waiter or whatever, like for the waiter who comes and picks it up. Absolutely a normal thing. And that's what I'm talking about. Something like this you would never encounter in Thailand. So if that makes sense. Yeah, pretty much this. Dehumanization of the lower class. Exactly. And they don't have a choice, right? So they can either say yes, sir. Like it's basically about the level of exploitation, right? And this level of exploitation you wouldn't see in Thailand, also because of religious purposes. Now, if you're a very bad person in an ethical way, in Buddhism you will become reincarnated as being in a worse situation. And that also reflects. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what Dr. Sexy basically says, yeah, it contradicts his belief system, and the same goes for me. So I could get some clarity. I mean, not clarity about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I already had that clarity before. But just kind of being here and also valuing the society I live in, honestly. Okay. Terrorism says happens in a lot of places. It's just a symptom of all the inequality in the world. Yeah, but it doesn't need to be. So if you want to have a counterexample, I mean, Thailand would be a counterexample. But a very, very good counterexample would be, for example, the Oman, right? So in the Oman, there's also a ruler in place. So you could have the very same inequality in Oman, where you also have like a lot of resources. So the country is actually rich. I mean, that's a tragedy actually. Kazakhstan is a very rich country, but the wealth is extremely distributed in an unequal way. And in Oman you have the same, but the ruler is a very just ruler. So he basically distributes most of the money into the country, into the population. And I don't know whether you visited the Oman or some of you guys visited the Oman at some point, but it led to a big uprise in wealth, also in a big uprise in distributed wealth, where most of the people just have a very, very comfortable life. So it doesn't need to be that way. That's what I'm getting at. Okay. It's about what to do about it. Maybe the same, you know, with democracy and communism. It's, you know, hard to say what's better. It completely depends on what you make out of it. There are very good democracies. There are very bad democracies in the world. They are very, like, communism is, you know, like, there's this narrative communism is always bad. It depends on what happens within, you know. Of course, if you have a communism which is super corrupt, where the rich have a lot of influential power in the government and abuse their power. Now you could say that's systematic. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think it's systematic. I think it's a lot about the little screws within. Okay, so the Spire, by the way, is a safe haven. You know what I was wondering today? Or like during the night? And I've wondered about that very often. You know, I'm aware that my runs are very throughout and they are very long. And I'm actually surprised that I have so many viewers. Honestly telling you that. I mean, I'm doing Slay the Spire mostly because I do enjoy it. And I happen to also stream it because I want to share it. I want to share it mostly with the people who need this stream the most. So, in a way, which are loving Slay the Spire as much as I do, or at the same ratio. What I'm getting it is I wouldn't have a problem, and I never had, streaming games for a smaller community. Battle Brothers, for example, where there are like 300 Battle Brothers enthusiasts, and despite Battle Brothers being very boring to watch, if you're in Battle Brothers and think it's like your universe, it's actually quite enjoyable. So I'm specifically surprised with all the fast pace out there nowadays, you know. I mean, the biggest part of the population is shifting towards like 10 seconds, 15 seconds input. Like that's kind of the how you say, where the direction where things are heading, right? So instead of having, I mean, YouTube was already short, right? Instead of 2-hour movies, or even like there were like 3 or 4-hour movies back in the days, a trend, right? Yeah. But I also think direction, it's not only a trend, but that's literally the direction where we are heading. I mean, if you think about the old movies, the Western movies, Scorsese and such, you will encounter that there are movies which are like 4 hours long, and 2 hours of the 4 hours nothing happens. That would be unthinkable nowadays. The movies got boiled down to 3 hours to 2 hours, and at some point, like YouTube was like a 10-minute format. So 10 minutes was great because people had like 10 minutes in between and you could watch that. Now 10 minutes are too long. You need something which gives you like permanent input and adrenaline or endorphins like every 10, 15 seconds. So there are movies which are 3 hours. I am aware of that fact. But I'm just saying, I mean, I think it's not a controversial story that there's always, and it's also measurable by the way, that there are always like higher paces of input. Otherwise people get bored on their mobile phones. Also the mobile phone, if you watch things through the PC, you will also encounter that phenomenon that suddenly the format is not broad, wide, but it's like this format, like the handy format, the mobile phone format. And people need like input all 10 dopamine addiction basically, exactly like 10, 15 seconds of input. And now here I am sometimes playing like a 7-hour, 8-hour run of Slay the Spire. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's kind of very, very old school, you know. Also no mods, like no modding. I mean, also these flashy effects in between. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm playing a game, I have a camera and that's it. I mean, literally sharing just like the game screen with you guys, you know. So, a very outdated format. I'd like to believe that this is kind of a safe haven for the people who do not like this 10, 15 seconds addiction thing with like a lot of flashy inputs, but rather having something where you can just really chill, spend your time. You're not always like in this. Also, this is the other thing, right? I mean, have you ever realized that you're like let's say you watch like 2 hours of TikTok or 3 hours of TikTok? Never happened to me, yeah. But it's kind of with the YouTube sessions where you're getting out of the YouTube session, and I would imagine it's even harsher with TikTok, where after you did that, you're not really calmed down in your mind, but you're kind of like always like a Frettchen on adrenaline. What do you say? Some kind of animal on adrenaline, where you want to go to bed, but you're still like, your mind is not in a good way exhausted, but you're agitated. It's not really good for the human mind. So yeah, having just like something where you're not required immediate it's also about the bandwidth, but we should really start with the run soon. Otherwise, we probably won't start it whatsoever. But it's also about that's also measurable attention, right? So humans have like an attention of around 12 to 16 bits, and nowadays what's being done is that not you direct your attention to somewhere, but something actually blocks your attention, these 12 to 16-bit bandwidth, by giving you flashy inputs which force you to look there, because that's how the human mind is wired. If you're standing on the street and a car is heading towards you, you cannot do different than shifting your attention to the car, because otherwise you would die, survival mode. And nowadays what's being done is that there are a lot of ways and to basically take this attention, forcing you to direct your attention to something, and you cannot do different than therefore directing your attention, whether you like it or not, to this very input. And it's really not good, guys. I mean, it just blocks your even in a way that you cannot think of something else, and that's on purpose. That's capitalism in its finest. In a way that what yields the most profit plays, and that's one of the reasons why we don't have that many I don't know, even like games any longer where you pay one time and then you can play the game, but this pay to win format, okay, the excursion, sorry, I really didn't sleep a lot, so my mind is also shifting around. But nowadays it's about exposure, and how it works is you expose your game by getting new customers, and getting new customers is kind of expensive. So let's say you would have like to pay $100 per new customer. If you would have a game where you pay only 50, they cannot afford that. They cannot spend $100 per new customer because it doesn't pay. But if you have a pay-to-win game where a new paying customer is worth 150, they can just scale it, and that's the reason why you have it, that nowadays you have games as a service format. Exactly. Okay, so let's cut the topic here and go to the beautiful Safe Haven Watcher Run, a world which is very, very clean, a nice and beautiful dream world. What Bammy says, speaking of pay to win, have you played any Marvel Snap, Life Coach? Honestly, the pay to win aspect of Marvel Snap was a big impact why I chose to not put it forward. I couldn't really advertise the game with a good conscience. It was not the only aspect, but it was one of them. As Papa says, stay please. Yeah. We will. You want to see the game screen. I can put the game screen, so we are in the run, and then we just can talk about what we even talked. Did you see? Talk. We talk with the whale. We decided that we should usually click here. This is equivalent of value. So this. One to three, but says 5 AM life coach sort of hits different. What about remove 2? 18 damage. What are we talking about here? What Dara says, what do you think about the Merle's take that the only way to lose with the Watcher is the low roll boss swap? Yeah, I think the take is wrong. So, I mean, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't boss swap all the time. Okay. So, slime boss. Question marks are increasing in value, for obvious reasons. Yeah, at this point of time, I have the feeling that the narratives being created by Merle can only be debunked by himself, honestly. Yeah. So, again, I think, or you debunk them yourself by trying to force, for example, I don't know, infinite or whatever, and you will realize, okay, if you do not boss swap, guys, you will realize yourself very quick. Okay? So, just do yourself the favor. You can do it yourself. I mean, you know my take on those things. So, try it out yourself. And maybe at some point Merle will do another Watcher performance. And again, I think at this point, like those narratives which people really want to believe, if they want to believe, like those who believe that narrative, only he can debunk those things himself. Okay, so, but for now, what do we do? Burning Elite is out of the question. The layout is complete garbage. This is out of the question. So the only possible start is here, right? Oh, also because we were just talking about it. That's a good way to lose, you know? Like, also it never hit me that Act 1 is like specifically easy or something. A lot of crap can happen for the Watcher. In a way that you might, for example, have problems with the boss. Like if it's Guardian or something. If it's Hexagos, you might sometimes not be strong enough. We encountered that, by the way. Another way is that you do not have fire into Elite, but you have to take Elite early. And Elite early, if you can go very wrong. Every Elite, because you cannot prepare for every Elite. I can give you direct examples. The knob, if you do not get early, like the eruption early, sometimes you even have it like, you know, like turn 2, you might break on turn 3. You can sometimes not kill the knob in 3. Sometimes, like low cases, but if that happens, it's devastating. Lagavulin, sometimes you do not, you need to open with eruption, right? And sometimes you cannot exit. And that can cost you the run. The cubes, if the draw is bad, can deal 50 damage to you. If your HP is lower than 50 at that point, you might even die to the first Elite. You might, like the Watcher can just die to the first Elite. Absolutely possible. With a bad draw. Okay. So, what is that? Yeah, a lousy fight. what Dara says about the transform one or remove one. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, yeah. Like, remove one or transform one is such a low Neo reward. I mean, specifically with those things, I think it's extremely clear. Also, if you take remove one or transform one, I think it's... Yeah, it's extremely bad what I've been talking about. You're burning like at least 50 gold. Like in floor 0. You have not even started the run. And you already burn hell of a lot. Yeah. So, I mean, there are edge cases, but that's not one of them. Okay. Bam bam. So kill and vigilant. Or, yeah, so of course the fight is solved here. Yeah, just do it. We can also vigilance eruption. Is it better? It's the same. Yes. Yeah, the smoke bomb. Goodbye, suckers. Okay, that's a difficult one. We have 3 times mediocre garbage. Very difficult one. Simmering Fury, I think it's very break-even. In hallways, it should be negative. Because if you draw it, then it doesn't have any impact. What Dara says about the... okay, but we need to conclude the topic at some point. But to conclude the topic. But yeah, the idea was you were more percentage by not swapping than by swapping into some trash. Yeah, absolutely, because you can also swap into good stuff, yeah. The concluded value of all boss swaps divided by the amount of boss swaps is a higher percentage win rate than by taking some trash, yeah, exactly. Okay, so the Simmering Fury is good against Lagavulin. You can set it up and then you have a Ras turn and you definitely assure that you can also exit. So it's great against Lagavulin. Against the cubes it somewhat depends. Against the knob it also somewhat depends. Yeah. It's very, you know, I don't know. Follow-up is extremely weird. I think it's a desperation pick, which I would probably not take first. If you compare it with Consecrate, Consecrate is so much better. So it's clear, right? And Consecrate is not the top tier pick. Consecrate is decent. Yeah. But Follow-up is so much worse. And then there is Conclude. Now it's the first AoE source. And Conclude is great damage. It's insanely good in also Follow-up hallways, which we will have. And it's great against the cubes, it's great against Nob. It can be okay against Lagavulin. It's great against Slime Boss, it's great for the Act 2 fights. Keep in mind that this is a curse later. It's literally a curse. Like all of the early game cards, it falls off the most. Which is fine. So I'll take it. I would have loved to have Hyper Anti-Synergy. Yeah, it's that. I would have loved to... and this is also why you should be cautious with the upgrade on the Conclude. Obviously the upgrade on the Conclude is amazing. In a nutshell. Yeah, but given that you won't end up playing it later, I would try to not upgrade it. Okay. Yeah, Conclude is also very counter-synergetic to Mayhem. We are really taking damage this fight, this is stupid. Counter synergy or burst draw. Counter synergy to mayhem. You cannot play mayhem if you have conclude in your deck. Okay. Big numbers have you in Act 2 even? No, absolutely, yeah, sure. I mean, conclude is amazing Act 1 and Act 2. Absolutely, sure. It falls off in Act 3. Yeah, Dira says it's basically one mana 6 damage AoE in the future. Yeah, that's how I look at it. But also you cannot play Vault. You cannot play it with Meditate. Yeah. And you will have some end turn effect later. So there's that. We also got a garbage potion, so we are even more inclined to take conclude. Yeah, Dira asked about the boss swap again. I have this table. Maybe I just show you very quick the table so you have an idea where I'm coming from. So we have this Neos table, and we evaluated the different options. Boss swap is around being 175, and besides these options, you will usually look at like around 110, 120 gold of value. So you will burn basically this delta if you decide different. And I'm very sure that these numbers are accurate plus minus 510. So even if these numbers are off, even then, you know. Okay. Okay. Wave of the Hand is not so good. Prostrate is not so good. Better with Conclude. And there's like Water. Like Water is a thing which I would pick specifically for the cubes. Also mainly. I don't think like Water is bad. I think like Water is absolutely decent. Yeah, what Papa says, like Water solves the cubes. I would take it over nothing. Because it does solve the cubes. And I think like if you don't have AoE, cubes might be the most difficult fight. But that is of course not true if you have Conclude already. I love Slay the Spire so much. I know. It's getting old. But, you know, it's kind of that universe where everything aligns, you know. Where you make decisions, you walk through the Spire. It's a truly beautiful game. Yeah. It's like you look at this, and completely depending on what you have, your decision will deviate. Speaking of deviation, there is no shop if you would take this path. So what is the question at the moment? The Burning Elite is a little bit tough as a first enemy. I mean, we could smoke it out if it's really bad. Which kind of speaks for it, honestly. Yeah, like. But that being said, if you really smoke this out, it's not exactly the place where we want to be. So, yeah. Pro says it's the one place where everything makes sense. Yeah. There is this very sad parting if you smoke bomb that. You mean because then suddenly it's only one elite? Yeah, it's true. But what I'm getting it is a smoke bomb only to avert risk of ruin. So example case we go here, it's burning Nob with max HP. Keep in mind that burning is irrelevant in most of the cases. Yeah, just like that's the. I'm really thinking about it. So to summarize the burning elite, the fire that it burns is basically irrelevant in Act 1, unless okay. And unless is mostly max HP. And it doesn't end there. Like, unless is mostly only max HP if you also happen to low roll. Right? So, it's a max HP Nob, but you did miss your eruption turn 1. And therefore you do not kill the Knob in 3. It is max HP cubes, but for whatever reason we had a bad draw. Like stuff like this. Yeah. And if you do low roll, that is directly connected to risk of ruin. And in our case, it's not. Yeah. I'm really thinking that we should take the burning lead, honestly. Look. What? Healing cubes kind of suck too? No, they don't. That's the point. Yeah. Strength is usually irrelevant. Strength on Lagavulin is basically irrelevant. Strength on the Knob is pretty much irrelevant. Strength on the cubes has some relevance, but a relatively small one if your deck has Conclude in it. Yeah, also healing and metallicize on the single minions is a joke. Also if you can do that for the burning, that's perfect. So it's really only about the max HP. And if we encounter the max HP against the cubes, for example, we have Eruption Conclude 33, 45 with 1 strike. So it ain't too bad, because then Conclude comes back, so that's not a problem. I think I really want to do it. No. Is there some other advantage attached to it? Well, yeah. The other advantage is that we don't have an advanced hallway fight. Which is not that difficult with a Conclude. They can get better before. Yeah, but basically what Papa says. We do have a question mark into a hallway here. And if we do this, we have to make the decision there. Now, you could argue we can also go to the shop. But our gold is not very suitable for a shop. So, do we ever buy potions? Never. So this is basically remove 1 card for gold. But for expensive gold. If we project the also future gold, it's like, it's not a really good note. If we go here, we remove 1 card for 100 gold. Like, if we say the future value, let's just say that's 25 gold. That is like a remove 1 card gain, like for 100 gold. And that's just bad. Yeah. So let's go here. So we can remove a defend if we want that. And we want that. It also makes our deck better. For obvious reasons. Oh. So that's not bad. Paparazzo makes the numbers. Crunching the numbers makes the math on it. 7 HP is lower than 100 gold. And that's about right. I see Vigilance. Vigilance is obvious. Strike Conclude is also obvious. Waha! Flawless. Fight. Oh. Whew. That's actually a difficult one. Or is it? Maybe it's not. We said we have against cubes, Tantrum is also good. Because we can assure that Conclude goes with Eruption. Yeah. And against the Knob is super good because we can increase our odds that we draw Eruption early by a lot. So, and Tantrum of course is super good into later game as well. Yeah. It's not difficult. It's not difficult, but